Today on my channel, Planner Friends, today I'm going to go through my testimony of faith. I'm going to talk about my walk in God. I'm going to talk about my chronic illness. And this is a deep one. This is a hard one to make. And I want you to know that this is not easy for me to do, but I believe it's necessary. So I brought out my tissues. So hang on, friends. Hello, my planner and faith friends. Welcome to my channel. I am one crafty dolo, and yes, I'm stepping out from behind the camera. Today's video is not the easiest for me to make, but I also feel it's necessary, if that makes sense. So I'm going to offer my faith testimony today. And so let's begin. If you are new, you're welcome to subscribe and tap the notification bell. If you're returning, thank you for your time and for spending it with me. I know your time is valuable. Now, I have a big cup of tea here because this is not easy. But then life is about doing things that may not be easy, and yet we're compelled to do them. I do feel like I'm being moved to do this, and somebody did request it. So, but I'm doing it there. I'm answering their request, but doing it a little differently. I wanted to give my faith testimony because if you've been watching me for a little bit, or even if you're new, I do a lot of faith studies. I show you how I decorate my studies. I talk about the word. I do all those kinds of things. But I haven't talked really about my own journey of faith and what transpired and so forth. So I thought I would get into some of it today. I do have notes in here that I'm going to refer to keep me on track, and I'm going to get some tissues. Hang on, because I know I might need them, so just in case. Okay, so I'm faith, God, Jesus. That's my overarching guide and arc to my life. And I'm going to talk to you about why that is and how I got here and how that continues to illuminate my path, and that while life is not easy, life is not always fun, I have found some really wonderful, I just find joy in lots of things thanks to my faith. So let me begin by saying I am a Christian, and I was raised in the church, and that is one of the best gifts my parents gave us. There's 3 of us, and that they did that for us. They gave us 2 wonderful things, and the first being our faith, the second, of course, being our confidence and ability to go into the world and strength and so forth. But that is all rooted in the first one, which is faith. I liked Sunday school when I was little. I remember my little green New Testament I got in Sunday school, and I loved it. Vacation Bible school. My life, singing in the church programs and singing in church services. Boy, I was the kid who liked to make a joyful noise. Boy, did I make a joyful. I made a noise. I don't know how joyful it was. And even now, when I'm having a bad day, I actually, in my head, I will sing those songs from being in Sunday school, rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. I can't sing, but you get the idea. To get myself back on track in a day, I sing these things to myself in my head to kind of say, okay, your day is taking a left turn. Let's get on track. Okay, so now, growing up that way, I didn't feel the need to reject it. I felt it was a wonderful way to grow up. The holidays, family, love, tradition. I feel that's a blessing, and I've done my best to do that with my son. At 16, I was diagnosed with the autoimmune disease Scleroderma. It's unusual that I was diagnosed quickly. That sometimes takes people a long time. My parents took me to a specialist in New York City who was arrogant, who was rude, and treated them and me. He literally said, "This is nothing." He gave us the attitude of, "Why are you wasting my time?" And he was wrong. He acted like what I had is just going to go away. He says this, and it didn't. Scleroderma is a rare disease. The way I describe it is it's lupus's evil cousin. I'm not diminishing sufferers of lupus, believe me. But scleroderma is a chronic, disabling, disfiguring, yes, I am quite disfigured, sometimes fatal, awful autoimmune disease. And I have been battling with it my entire adult life. I want you to think about that sentence just for a moment. First off, I need to tell you, do not feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me. I'm good. Okay? I am good. And I am not talking about this to garner sympathy. In fact, it's very difficult for me to talk about my scleroderma because I don't want people to see me as sick. I want them to see me for me, not that. That's a facet of me, and it certainly makes my life challenging sometimes. But that's just one facet of me. That's not all of me. Sorry, I just needed more tea. So my ground rule number one is don't feel badly for me because there's no reason to. I am how God made me, and I have faith and trust in Him that He is taking me forward on this path, and I'm good. It's challenging, sure. Do I like being sick? No. But it's not the only challenge I faced, and I'm sure you've had your share. I always say none of us gets out unscathed. I wish we did, friend, but we don't. That's just a fact. And I don't like it, but I'm being honest with you. And I want you to know that you're not the only one suffering. I'm not the only one suffering, but we have strength in Christ who sustains us. So, from the ages of 19 years old to 25 years old, I had big goals and dreams. I wanted to live in New York City. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a journalist. I had all these dreams. And then my illness kept spreading. And every time I saw a doctor, and I'm crying out of frustration, not feeling, it was just such a frustrating time period. Every time I'd see a doctor, something else would come up in that. They're like, oh, by the way, this could happen. So, for example, I learned my retinas could detach. And yes, one later on did, and the other one has tried twice to do it. So far, so good. Not good. I heard about things like mobility, that I would lose my mobility, that I would have GI involvement, I would have problems with my esophagus, that I would have problems with my lungs, that my kidneys could be. I mean, this is just every time I went to a doctor, it just seemed worse. And it was a really scary time. And I don't know if you've had the dreams you thought of for yourself just go up in flames, but they did spectacularly in my case. It was really hard. I just didn't know what was my life going to be. Throughout this all, I had faith in God. And I was trying to understand. I really was. I was praying. I didn't take my diagnosis lying down. For example, they talked about mobility. So I started using weights to track my mobility, like to make myself stronger. I didn't just give up. I wanted a life. I wanted to have a life, but over time I realized quality of life is so essential. It's not just quantity, it's quality. From the ages of 19 to 25, I was on a multitude of medications. And every single medication, I heard the same thing. Didn't work. Didn't work, didn't work, didn't work. At one point, I was in the hospital with an allergic reaction to the meds. I had blisters all over my tongue. I was almost 21. I was devastated. Finally, I went on an experimental treatment at the University of Pennsylvania, the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, where they injected interferon into lesions, scleroderma lesions in my legs. I went through one trial, then I went through another, and I don't know how you psych yourself up for treatments that make you sick, but that's what I had to do. I just did it, I guess. And my mom was great. My mom was there throughout this, and it was hard for her. And at the end, true story, so I have these lesions all over me, and the doctor really could have cared. He takes a small biopsy out of lesions on my legs, doesn't stitch them up, leaves me with these two marks in addition to the lesions, and he's like, yeah, it didn't work. And I'd had it. I had absolutely, at 25 years old, my son is 24, and I've shared this with him many, many times because I want him to grab his life, you know? I want him to walk forward in faith, which he is, he's a good boy, but he's 24, I was 25. And I felt my life was like blown apart. I made a decision. Now, again, I was raised in the church. I was raised in faith. That's such a gift I was given. And finally, I got down on my knees and said, okay, it's up to you, God. Because you know my story. You know how my story ends. You know the beginning. You know the middle. So I'm going to trust in you to guide that story the way you see fit, and I will accept whatever it is, whatever that story entails. If it means a year, it means a year. If it means 5 years, then it means 5 years. I walked away from all the medicines. I am not telling anyone who is ill to do this. I am not saying this is the right path for you. This is about my faith journey, and this is how I came to grow even stronger in my faith. I had to make peace with the fact that my life was completely His, and that Jesus was walking me through this, but that in the end, I will assume responsibility for what I can do, but I can't live the way I'm living. I had no quality of life. And again, I'm not advocating that medical decision for you. That was my personal decision. And I would have accepted whatever it was. If I lived a year more, I would have known that that was His will. I'm not saying that I was committing suicide by not taking medicines, but the medicines were worse than what was going on in my body, and that was my medical choice. I'm almost 60. I was 25. More than 25 years later, here I am. Now, if you think that the scleroderma is the only bad thing to happen, no. I have had plenty of other things in my life that have been difficult. From being 25, by the time I was 30, I went back to school and I got my bachelor's and I got my master's and I got a job and I got fellowships, and then I went for a doctorate. In my graduate career, I had a total of 9 academic fellowships. I am proud of that. And what happened to me in school was I realized something. I'd spent a long chunk of my life saying my body was inferior. I knew God made me, but I felt, compared to the world at large, I was less than. And that's when and in school and through God leading me to school, understand, though, that the more I did, the more results I saw, the more I confirmed his presence and guiding me in my life. So I realized that my body may be different, whatever you want to call it. My mind was sharp. And even if my body were to fail me, nobody could take my mind away. And that was my faith journey. And I saw the hand of God throughout the process. I need to take a break. This is a lot to talk about. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I really have spent my lifetime not telling people I'm ill. I have spent a lifetime working around my illness to try to hide it from people, which I understand is a privilege, but also understand it's been work, okay? And that's a separate video. If you're interested, I can post that. But rest assured, everything from the clothing that I wear to the amount of rest I get, to the amount that I eat, to how I move about in this world, to the shoes I wear, everything is influenced by this illness. It impacts most facets of my daily life, and that's not a complaint. That's a statement of fact. It's not a complaint. But I wrote an article on Medium, Count It All Joy, How to Find Joy While Living Chronically Ill. Here's what God has taught me through my illness, and these are the most important parts, in my opinion, of this video. You have one life, and your life is a precious gift, and you can spend it on stupid people, stupid things, stupid nonsense, chasing things that are of this world and not of God's world, or you can believe in you and him and know that he's got your back. And yes, again, scleroderma isn't the only thing I've had to deal with that's been really hard. There's been emotional stuff and what have you, but it is through the grace of God and his mercy that I'm still here. So what I finally figured out a few years ago, and I started writing about little bits on my computer about having this illness, is that there had to be a purpose then. For God to give me so many years extra from what I ever anticipated. And I didn't walk around saying I'm going to die. I mean, but he showed me the value of life. He showed me the value of his love and what he does for us. And again, if he had sent me onward from this life, then that was his will. And who are we to argue with him? Who are we to play God and say, no, we know better? We don't. And so I've been taught humility, patience, grace, mercy, kindness. In my personal planner, I have my phrase of the year. I made little cards, and it says, be the light. And that's my phrase for this year, and that's been my go-to. And I worked with students for years, and I tried to be their light best as I could. I worked with young learners recently, and I'm trying to be the light for them and to show them how much they matter. I don't get religious in the classroom. I don't get religious. I always wear my crosses, but I don't want, I'm not there to force feed them my faith, but what I am there to say is that you matter. And God taught me so many lessons through this, and they're not over. And now irony of all ironies, I'm starting to think about getting older and what does that mean with this illness, and I don't know. So, as far as people will be surprised and may not believe I'm disfigured, I am disfigured over 65% of my body. It's just kind of strategically located, but I don't wear shorts. I will wear short sleeves because most of the damage is on the back of me. Let's see if I can do this. You can kind of see there's all this scar tissue throughout here, and it just goes. And yet, I have somebody in my life who thinks, who adores me and thinks I'm lovely the way I am, and that's really special. And that tells you the kind of person he is, because he's like, I don't see it, I don't see it, I don't see it. And he's not feeding me a line. Oh, come on, I'm old enough and I've been around people enough to know cheesy lines when I see them. And so I want to end here and say that if you're facing things that are difficult, whether it's scleroderma, whether it's another illness, whether it's heartbreak, I've been through heartbreak, believe me. If you're facing loss, if you're facing loss of a job, loss of somebody dear to you, or many people dear to you, and you're feeling so alone, you're not. None of us get out unscathed. But I believe if we turn to God, if we pray to Jesus, if we put on the armor of God and carry the mantle of Christ, and by doing that, I just believe that, yeah, your life can be wonderful in spite of circumstances. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing my faith journey with me and for listening, if you made it this far, to my illness and my scleroderma story and how I turned to God. I hope that this was hard. This is so hard to film. It's so hard, but I hope that this makes a difference for someone out there, regardless of what you're facing. You're not alone. I can pray for you and send you all the blessings. And do me a favor today, whenever you're watching this, say your prayers and be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself, because even if the world is rotten to you, you are loved. And that's my message. Thank you for hearing my testimony. God bless you, my friends. Bye.